Today I'll be reviewing Pokemon Journeys episode 29 and 30. So, episode 29 was called A Jealous Fit Yamper's Feelings. I know I haven't reviewed the past 3 episodes, but I've been kind of sick and working, so I haven't had time, but I will get all 3 in before episode 32. But let's start with episode 29. So, this episode was about Yamper and how it was jealous of how P Dove was getting more attention than it. And that was pretty much the main plot of today's story. We also got to learn more about Koharu's past and how she was once jealous of Yamper in the past. We did get a bit of Ash and Go, but they didn't really play a role in the episode. They did do some stuff in the beginning. Well, we saw them searching for Sabo crying, which made them cry. But that wasn't really anything important. But in this episode, it was nice to see Koharu and her family. We also got to see more of their family dynamic, which we've probably seen more of them than any other family in the show aside from maybe Ash. And that's because all of their family members are reoccurring characters since they all live in the same city as Ash and Go. Ironically, I don't think we've had enough of Koharu as compared to all other Pokegirls in most series so far though, up to this point. But I'll talk more about that at the end of the review. So throughout the episode, we see Koharu bond with P Dove when we see them reading the magazines and just hanging out. And it just makes Yamper more and more jealous throughout the episode. And Professor Sakuragi even comments by saying that Yamper is like their youngest child and P Dove has taken over. And later on, the professor talks about how Koharu used to act the same way, if not worse, back in the day. And then we get a flashback of a younger Koharu who's a lot louder and complained about not getting attention because Yamper was. And then Koharu is kind of embarrassed about how she was so, I guess, awful back in the day, and says that her past self was awful. And I think that was a nice moment of reflection for Koharu where she realizes how she's changed since she was younger. She hasn't really changed in the present timeline, but them giving us Koharu reflecting on how she was in the past and how she's changed since then was still nice for her character. And I do hope they still keep adding onto her character in modern day. But move back to the episode. The other professor, I can't remember her name, one of the other professor assistants talks about how she used to be jealous of her younger sister, and I assume that's Koharu's friend, who has the same hair color because anime logic. But that aside, Professor Sakuragi starts to tell us the story about the runaway Yamper and how Koharu gave him the boot and says she doesn't want Yamper here. So Yamper runs away and Koharu goes looking for him, and it saves her, and now they're besties. So after that story, the Firo that got P-Dove hurt in the first place shows up. So Professor Sakuragi suggests that Yamper and Koharu team up to battle it, and they do, and then they beat P-Dove, or not P-Dove, Firo, and that's that. And then afterwards, P-Dove's owner returns, and he takes it and goes home. I know some people wanted Koharu to catch P-Dove, but they kind of established that it had an owner early on, so I can't really complain about that. But her having, or a reason to train Pokemon and understand them more would have been nice. So that was a nice Koharu focused episode. It feels like she's barely here most of the time. I saw somebody look at all the episodes, and they pretty much pointed out that Koharu has only ever been in 3 episodes in a row straight 2 times, this being the second time when you include the next episode. So she's only had 3 straight episodes appearances twice. Other than that, it's all scattered appearances throughout the series so far. And we all know the reason for this is because she's in school and that she's always here in Kanto because of it, and that Ash and Go travel around all over the place, but it would be nice to get more Koharu focused episodes, but this was a great one for her character. It was nice learning about her past and how she went from being a brat to being calm like how she is now, and how she met Yamper. All in all, I thought that was a pretty good episode for Koharu, and I'd give it a solid 8 out of 10. So, one other thing I want to talk about is how Professor Sakuragi says he got Yamper from one of his friends in Galar. And I'm probably gonna go ahead and assume that's Professor Magnolia because Sonia has a Yamper. I could just see that being the connection. Or maybe even Chairman Rose because I guess he would probably be closer in age to Professor Sakuragi than Professor Magnolia. Now on to episode 30. Now, this was a controversial episode within the community for obvious reasons. Usually, when people say outlandish things based on little to no evidence and with no reason, I ignore it. But with this episode, everyone was upset because the way Pikachu behaved was just far too out of character for it. And I guess that's everyone's number one reason for being mad, and it's 100% true. It's been well over 1,000 episodes with Ash and Pikachu together. They've been together since episode 1, and Ash has had over 40 Pokemon plus 30 Tauros. And Pikachu is now getting jealous after all this time with Ash. It's now getting jealous of a newly hatched Riolu of all Pokemon. And if there was ever a time for Pikachu to have been jealous of any Pokemon, it would have been Greninja or Charizard or probably Infernape, not the baby Pokemon that Ash recently hatched and is training after he found a connection with it. Before it was even born, by the way. So everyone's frustration is understandable, but let's briefly go over what led to this and what happened throughout the episode. So Ash battles with Riolu in its first World Tournament battle and wins, and it's against the Electabuzz trainer that we saw in episode 18 from that gym. I think that was a nice callback to that. Anyways, so Ash moves up in rank to rank 109 in the standings, and afterwards Pikachu pretty much implies or says that he wants to battle, but Ash says he wants to focus on Riolu since it's on a roll winning, I guess, and Pikachu is upset, and that becomes the main problem of the episode. The last episode also had a theme of jealousy, but I think Pikachu isn't the Pokemon you should have used for it in this instance. If anything, it should have been the opposite with Riolu as the jealous one because Ash uses Pikachu. I know we've had a similar situation with Chikorita, but that's exactly why I think it should have been Pikachu who was the one Ash was using to make Riolu jealous this time. Because Pikachu now being jealous after all this time literally just doesn't make sense in any sort of facet. But let's look at this from another perspective, from Pikachu's perspective. Ash wasn't giving Pikachu anything to do or any attention at all. And so Pikachu falls asleep. Then suddenly Ash shows up and is like, Pikachu, you're not going to be able to win in the World Championship matches like this if you're being lazy. And so Pikachu gets mad. And that's pretty understandable, but not everything else that happened after it. So after that, later on, Ash mom shows up and talks with Pikachu and tells him that he's special to Ash. And then she tells Go and Koharu about how Ash and Pikachu met. Then she decides to sleep over and Pikachu sleeps with Delia and Delia sings him a song. Then the next morning she leaves and Pikachu follows her, and so Pikachu and Mr. Mime end up on a journey to Pallet Town. And along the way, Pikachu goes through, I guess, a reflection period, and they make references to episode 1, which I thought was a nice touch with the Spearow. And so when Pikachu finally gets to Pallet Town, he decides that he actually wants to head back to Ash. But Ash is actually in Pallet Town and was waiting for Pikachu. And I love how Ash immediately apologizes to Pikachu and admits that it was his fault and says that he was sorry. And it's because Koharu scolds him and says that he didn't understand Pikachu at all. I really like that for Koharu and for Ash. It's Koharu showing support or giving out help to Ash and Pikachu, playing a support role character like most of the other Poke Girls have done throughout the series. And then Ash instantly recognizing his mistakes and wanting to correct them. And I really enjoyed the soundtrack and the music that they played. I think that both those things combined made that scene so much more special. And so the episode ends with Ash and Pikachu making up. That was an okay episode overall. Had this happened about 300 to 400 episodes ago, it would have been fine. Probably like 600 episodes ago, to be honest. But not at episode 1000 and wherever we are, because this is too far in for this to be happening. And because of that, I'm actually going to say this episode is probably skippable in the long run if you plan on rewatching it. But let me know what you thought of this episode in the comment section below. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share. Thanks for watching, and bye.